Chosen one, stop everything you are doing right now. This message was not supposed to reach you today. Something blocked it. Something tried to delay it. But heaven overrode every obstacle because what I am about to tell you cannot wait another moment. A gate opened for you. And the moment it did, everything around you shifted. You felt it. You sensed it. You knew something was different. The air changed. The pressure increased. People who once smiled at you started looking at you differently. Conversations that once flowed became awkward and strained. You were not imagining any of it. What you experienced was real. What you sensed was accurate. What you felt in your spirit was confirmation that something massive just happened in the invisible realm on your behalf. Chosen one, pause right here. If these words are already stirring something deep inside your spirit, you need to subscribe to this channel right now. This is not entertainment. This is divine alignment. The enemy has been working overtime to keep messages like this from reaching you. Do not let distraction win today. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and type "The Gate Opened" in the comments so heaven knows you received this word. This message found you because you were ready. Stay connected. Now listen carefully. The gate that opened was not unlocked by your striving. It was not forced open by your fasting alone. It was not pushed through by your prayers getting louder. It opened because your obedience reached a threshold that heaven was watching for. Nobody announced it. No prophet confirmed it. No sign appeared in the sky. But something shifted, and the moment it did, opposition noticed before your allies did. That is why the attacks increased. That is why familiar faces grew cold. That is why you felt watched, monitored, and targeted without understanding why. You crossed into a level that required immediate resistance from the enemy. The gate opened, and nothing will ever be the same again. Chosen one, what you sensed was not your imagination playing tricks on you. Every instinct that told you something changed was right. Every whisper in your spirit that said something is different now was accurate. Every moment you questioned your own perception because nobody else seemed to notice what you noticed was confirmation that you were elevated beyond where others could see. You did not imagine the shift. The shift was real. But here is what nobody told you. There are levels in the spirit realm that are not accessed through public recognition. There are dimensions of authority that do not unlock through religious performance. There are gates that remain sealed no matter how loudly you pray or how long you fast. These gates only open when obedience is tested under fire and you remain aligned anyway. And you remained aligned. When it made sense to quit, you stayed. When betrayal wounded you, you did not retaliate. When confusion surrounded you, you kept moving forward. When loneliness pressed against your chest and made breathing difficult, you still chose faithfulness. Heaven was watching. Heaven was recording. Heaven was waiting. And then, the threshold was crossed. You did it quietly, without applause, without witnesses, without a single human being acknowledging what just happened in the realm where it mattered most. But the moment you crossed, opposition recalibrated immediately. This is what you need to understand. The sudden intensity you experienced after that moment was not because you were falling behind. It was not because you made a mistake. It was not because God was punishing you for something hidden. The intensity increased because you advanced. Authentic elevation provokes immediate exposure. Hidden agendas that operated comfortably in your presence suddenly felt threatened. Smiles that seemed warm lost their warmth overnight. Voices that encouraged you grew silent without explanation. You were not rejected. You were elevated beyond their reach. You crossed quietly. You advanced without witnesses. You were promoted in silence. And now everything is responding to who you just became. The shift you sensed was real. And what follows will prove it beyond any doubt. Chosen one, the fire you walked through was never designed to destroy you. It was designed to verify you. You thought you were being punished. You thought heaven had turned its back on you. You thought maybe you had done something wrong and this was the consequence you deserved. But that was never the truth. The fire was a test, and you passed it without even knowing you were being examined. Let me tell you what really happened during that season when everything fell apart. When the people who should have stood beside you walked away. When doors that should have opened stayed locked no matter how many times you knocked. When your prayers seemed to hit the ceiling and fall back down unanswered. Heaven was watching your response. Not your performance. Not your eloquent words. Not your public image. Heaven was watching what you did when nobody was clapping. Heaven was recording your choices when quitting made perfect sense and nobody would have blamed you for walking away. And you stayed. When betrayal cut deep into your chest and made you question every relationship you ever trusted, you did not retaliate. You did not seek revenge. You did not become bitter and poisonous like those who wounded you. You stayed aligned. When confusion wrapped itself around your mind and made you question everything you believed about your calling, you kept moving forward, slowly, painfully, but forward. You stayed aligned. When loneliness became your only companion and the silence of heaven felt unbearable, you still woke up every morning and chose faithfulness over feelings. You stayed aligned. Chosen one. The test was never about perfection. Heaven was not measuring whether you made mistakes. Heaven was measuring whether you remained aligned when alignment cost you everything. And you passed. The fire that should have consumed you became the furnace that refined you. The pressure that should have crushed you became the force that shaped you. The season that should have broken you became the classroom that qualified you. You did not fail the test. You did not even know it was a test. But heaven knew, and heaven recorded every moment of your faithfulness when faithfulness felt foolish. What felt like abandonment was actually observation. What felt like punishment was actually verification. You were being qualified for something your mind cannot yet comprehend. Chosen one. Now you need to understand why everything suddenly intensified. The attacks did not increase because you were doing something wrong. The resistance did not multiply because you stepped out of alignment. The warfare did not escalate because heaven was angry with you. The opposition recalibrated because you advanced. When the gate opened and you crossed into that new level, something happened in the invisible realm that sent shockwaves through the kingdom of darkness. Assignments were rewritten, strategies were adjusted, resources were redirected, all aimed at you. You became a priority target overnight. Not because you were weak, not because you were vulnerable, but because you became dangerous to systems that operated unchallenged for years. This is what authentic elevation does. It provokes immediate exposure. Hidden agendas that lived comfortably in your atmosphere suddenly felt threatened by your light. People who smiled in your face while carrying poison in their hearts could no longer pretend. Masks that held firmly for years began cracking because your discernment sharpened beyond their ability to deceive. That is why familiar faces grew cold without explanation. That is why conversations that once flowed became awkward and forced. That is why people who ignored you for years suddenly started paying attention to your every move. You were not imagining the shift in how people treated you. You were experiencing the automatic response that happens when someone advances beyond where others can reach. Chosen one. The coldness you felt from familiar voices was not rejection. It was recalibration. Those voices could not follow where you were going. Those connections could not survive the altitude you just reached. Those relationships could not carry the weight of the assignment now resting on your shoulders. Heaven's promotion triggered hell's reorganization. And now you walk through rooms where your presence alone disrupts old patterns. You carry authority that threatens comfortable dysfunction. You hold light that exposes what preferred to remain hidden. This is why resistance became subtle. Loud attacks stopped working on you. Direct confrontation failed. So the enemy shifted to indirect methods. Quiet opposition, whispered accusations, monitored movements. You advanced. Opposition recalibrated. And now spiritual warfare operates differently around you because you became someone different. The intensity was never about your failure. It was always about your promotion. Chosen one. What you are experiencing right now is not loss. It is sorting. Heaven initiated a separation process in your life and you did not receive a warning before it started. Relationships that felt permanent suddenly dissolved. Connections that seemed unbreakable quietly faded. People who promised to stay forever disappeared without explanation. And you blamed yourself. You replayed every conversation searching for what you did wrong. You examined every interaction looking for the moment you pushed them away. You questioned your own worth because the people who once celebrated you now act like strangers. But you did not do anything wrong. The sorting began because you elevated beyond where certain connections could follow. Not everyone is meant to witness every level of your journey. Not every relationship was designed to survive every season of your advancement. Some people were assigned to specific chapters of your story and their pages have now ended. This does not mean they were enemies. This does not mean you misjudged them. This does not mean the memories you shared were lies. It means you outgrew containers that cannot expand with you. Chosen one, the grief you feel is valid. The confusion is understandable. The pain of watching closeness evaporate is real and heavy. But what feels like rejection is actually divine protection, operating without your permission. Heaven removed access before access became sabotage. Some of those connections would have diluted your authority if they remained. Some of those relationships would have distracted you from assignments that require complete focus. Some of those voices would have spoken doubt into your spirit precisely when faith was required. So heaven sorted them out, not with drama, not with confrontation, not with explosive arguments that gave you closure. Heaven simply shifted the atmosphere, and what could not survive the new frequency quietly fell away. You were not abandoned. You were elevated beyond reach. You were not rejected. You were protected from contamination. Do not chase what heaven released. Do not beg for access from those who lost authorization to stand beside you. Do not shrink yourself trying to fit into rooms your growth has disqualified you from. The sorting is divine. The separation is strategic. The loneliness you feel is temporary. What comes next requires exactly who remained. And who remained is exactly enough. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. If this message is describing your exact situation right now, you are not here by accident. This is divine alignment. Subscribe to this channel immediately because more words are coming for your spirit. Hit the notification bell so the enemy cannot block the next confirmation from reaching you. Type "The sorting is divine" in the comments, and let heaven know you received this word. You have been walking through this season alone for too long. Stay connected. Your family is here. Chosen one, there is something you must learn at this level that nobody taught you before. Silence is no longer passive. Silence is now your weapon. The urge to explain yourself is screaming inside your chest right now. The need to defend your character against false accusations feels urgent and necessary. The desire to make people understand your side of the story is almost unbearable. But heaven is asking you to hold your tongue. Not because you are guilty, not because you have something to hide, not because their accusations are true. Heaven is asking you to remain silent because words spoken to wrong ears become weapons used against you. At lower levels, transparency was safe. Sharing your heart was rewarded. Opening up about your struggles brought comfort and connection. But at this level, the rules have changed. Not everyone asking questions wants answers. Some want ammunition. Not everyone requesting details wants to understand. Some want information to twist. Not everyone claiming concern is genuinely worried. Some are gathering intelligence for those who wish you harm. Chosen one, you trusted people with your plans, and watched those plans get sabotaged. You shared your dreams with familiar voices and watched those dreams get mocked behind your back. You opened your heart to those who seemed safe and watched your vulnerabilities become public knowledge. That was not your fault, but it was your lesson. At this level, strategy must remain concealed until execution is complete. Vision must stay protected until manifestation is undeniable. Movement must happen in silence until results speak louder than announcements ever could. When you stop narrating your moves, interference loses access. When you stop explaining your decisions, manipulation loses leverage. When you stop defending yourself against every accusation, opposition loses the energy you were giving away freely. Your silence is not weakness. Your silence is wisdom wearing war clothes. There are ears around you right now that are not meant to receive your strategy. There are eyes watching your movements that are not assigned to support your vision. There are voices asking questions that are not motivated by love. Discern who deserves access to your words. Not everyone earns the privilege of hearing your plans. Speak less. Move quietly. Let results announce what your mouth no longer will. Chosen one, the attacks against your mind were never random. They were precision strikes, aimed at your greatest weapon. There were nights when thoughts invaded your head that did not sound like you. Dark whispers suggesting you were worthless. Haunting voices reminding you of every failure. Relentless accusations declaring you would never become who God promised you would be. You thought something was wrong with you. You thought maybe you were broken beyond repair. You thought perhaps everyone else had peace while chaos lived permanently inside your skull. You wondered if the mental exhaustion would ever end or if this was simply your life now. But those thoughts were not yours. The enemy targeted your mind because your discernment matured beyond comfortable levels. Your perception sharpened to the point where deception could no longer camouflage itself in your presence. Your spiritual sight developed to where hidden agendas became visible before they could execute their plans. So the attack shifted to your thought life. If the enemy could cloud your perception, deception could return to hiding. If the enemy could confuse your discernment, Manipulation could operate freely again. If the enemy could overwhelm your mind with noise, the still small voice of heaven would become difficult to hear. That is why mental warfare intensified precisely when your clarity increased. Chosen one, you were not losing your mind. You were gaining sight that threatened invisible operations. The intensity of the mental attack measured exactly how dangerous your perception had become to the kingdom of darkness. Think about it carefully. The confusion arrived right before major decisions. The anxiety spiked right before breakthrough moments. The mental fog descended right when clarity was most needed. These were not coincidences. These were coordinated assaults. But you survived every single one. The thoughts that should have driven you to destruction lost their power. The whispers that should have convinced you to quit failed their assignment. The mental pressure that should have broken your focus did not accomplish its mission. You are still here, still standing, still believing. And now your perception is sharper than ever before. What you see is real even when others deny it. What you sense is accurate even when nobody validates it. What you discern is true even when the crowd calls you paranoid. You are not imagining things. You are not exaggerating threats. You are not confused. Your mind was targeted because your mind became dangerous. And your mind survived. Chosen one, heaven is not confused about your timing. You are not behind schedule. You are not forgotten in the waiting room of destiny. You are not watching everyone else receive their blessings while yours got lost in divine paperwork. The delays you experienced were never punishment. They were calibrations. There were doors you knocked on until your knuckles bled. Opportunities you prayed for until your voice grew hoarse. Promises that seemed so close you could almost touch them before they slipped away without explanation. And you questioned everything. You wondered if you heard God correctly. You questioned whether the calling was real or imagined. You examined your life, searching for hidden sin that might be blocking your breakthrough. You watched others receive in months what you had been believing for years. The frustration was unbearable. The confusion was overwhelming. The temptation to give up whispered constantly. But those closed doors saved your life. Some opportunities did not open because they would have cost you authority later. Some relationships did not work because they would have drained resources needed for your real assignment. Some promotions did not happen because they would have elevated you before reinforcement was complete. Protection sometimes looks like postponement. Heaven was not ignoring your prayers. Heaven was answering them differently than you requested. You asked for open doors. Heaven gave you closed ones that prevented destruction disguised as opportunity. You asked for acceleration. Heaven gave you delays that built capacity your future would require. You asked for the blessing now. Heaven said not yet because now would have destroyed what later will sustain. Chosen one, the timing of heaven operates on information you do not possess. What looks like delay from your perspective looks like precision from heaven's view. What feels like forgetfulness from where you stand looks like intentional preparation from where God sits. You are being reinforced, not restrained. Every month of waiting added strength you did not know you lacked. Every year of delay developed character that shortcuts would have skipped. Every closed door protected you from rooms that would have become prisons. Do not envy those who received what you were protected from. Not all open doors lead to promised destinations. Speed is not always evidence of divine favor. Sometimes the slowest path is the only one that leads to lasting victory. Your delay was your development. Stop right here, chosen one. If you have not subscribed yet, ask yourself why. Every time you search for clarity, every time you feel overwhelmed and need direction, God guides you to messages exactly like this one. Do not reject what heaven is trying to give you. Subscribe now so you stay connected to the voice that lifts you when nobody else does. Type "My delay was calibration" in the comments and claim this word over your life. The next message coming to this channel might be the one that changes everything for you. Stay connected. Do not let the enemy steal your confirmation. Chosen one, something shifted in how you carry yourself and you may not have even noticed. You walk into rooms differently now. Not louder, not more demanding, not seeking attention or validation from those present. But something about your presence disrupts atmospheres that were stable before you arrived. People feel it even when you say nothing. Conversations shift when you approach. Energy changes when you sit down. Dynamics that operated comfortably for years suddenly feel threatened by your quiet presence. This is what authority without noise looks like. The level you unlock does not announce itself with volume. It does not require you to declare your position or defend your credentials. It does not need microphones or platforms or audiences applauding your every word. True authority operates through presence, not performance. And now you carry weight that others sense without understanding why. This is why people who once ignored you now watch your every move. This is why those who dismissed you years ago suddenly pay attention to what you do and where you go. This is why familiar faces study you with curiosity mixed with something that looks like suspicion. You became visible to those who preferred you invisible. Your presence disrupts systems that thrived on chaos. Your order threatens patterns that profited from dysfunction. Your peace unsettles those who built their identity on keeping others anxious and confused. Chosen one, you did not ask for this level of visibility. You did not seek the attention that now follows your movements. You simply stayed aligned through seasons that should have broken you, and authority was added without announcement. Now you carry influence without raising your voice. Now you command rooms without demanding respect. Now you threaten comfortable dysfunction simply by existing in your authentic alignment. Do not shrink to make others comfortable. Comfort is not your assignment. Alignment is your only mandate. Some will celebrate your growth. Many will feel threatened by it. But their response is not your responsibility. Your only job is to remain positioned in what heaven authorized. Walk in the authority you have been given. Speak when heaven prompts you to speak. Stay silent when wisdom requires silence. And let your presence do what your words no longer need to do. You carry weight now. You disrupt patterns now. You threaten what thrived unchallenged now. Chosen one, your isolation was not abandonment. It was insulation. There was a season when heaven removed access to relationships that once felt essential. Connections that provided comfort suddenly became unavailable. People who used to call stopped reaching out. Invitations that once filled your calendar completely disappeared. And you felt utterly alone. You wondered if you had become unlovable. You questioned whether something about you pushed everyone away. You examined yourself, searching for flaws that might explain why closeness evaporated and loneliness became your constant companion. But heaven was not punishing you with isolation. Heaven was protecting you through separation. Certain connections had to be severed because they would have diluted the authority being developed inside you. Some relationships could not survive the intensity of what was being built in your spirit. Specific voices had to be silenced because they would have spoken doubt precisely when faith was required. So heaven insulated you, not to harm you, not to break you, not to make you suffer unnecessarily. Heaven insulated you because what was being deposited required an environment free from contamination. When you stopped being available for misuse, confusion tried to convince you that isolation meant rejection. The enemy whispered that loneliness was proof nobody cared. Dark thoughts suggested you were forgotten by both heaven and earth. But you were never alone. While human connections withdrew, divine assignments surrounded you. While familiar voices grew silent, heaven spoke louder than ever before. While loneliness pressed against your chest, purpose was being carved into your spirit with precision that required solitude. Chosen one, the isolation season was not wasted time. It was fortification time. You were strengthened in ways that crowds could not accomplish. You were developed in depths that company would have distracted from reaching. You were prepared for assignments that required exactly the capacity loneliness built inside you. And now the insulation season is ending. What was developed in silence will soon be revealed with power. What was built in isolation will now impact multitudes. What felt like abandonment will prove itself to be the most strategic protection you have ever received. You were insulated. You were protected. You were never abandoned. Chosen one, stop scrolling and listen to me. If this message is touching wounds you have never spoken about publicly, this is your confirmation. You were not alone in that season, even when every feeling screamed otherwise. Subscribe to this channel right now because heaven assigned these messages to your journey. Hit the notification bell so the next word reaches you without delay. Type "I was being insulated" in the comments and declare it over your story. Do not walk away from what God specifically sent to find you today. Your breakthrough might be in the very next video. Stay connected. You belong here. Chosen one, the enemy does not fear your gifts. The enemy fears your discipline. You have been given abilities that others notice immediately. Talents that draw attention without effort. Anointing that opens doors and creates opportunities seemingly overnight. People see the gifting and assume that is what makes you dangerous. But they are wrong. Gifts can be distracted. Talents can be misdirected. Anointing can be wasted on platforms that lead nowhere. The enemy has watched countless gifted ones rise quickly and fall even faster because their gifts outpaced their discipline. But your discipline cannot be manipulated. When temptation offered shortcuts, you refused them. When easier paths appeared that required compromise, you walked past them. When opportunities promised acceleration but demanded you abandon your integrity, you said no and kept moving on the slower road. That is what terrifies the kingdom of darkness. Spiritual warfare intensifies when obedience becomes consistent. The enemy can handle occasional faithfulness. Sporadic discipline does not register as a threat. But when your alignment becomes daily, when your choices become predictable in their righteousness, when your character cannot be purchased no matter the price offered, assignments get rewritten in the invisible realm, you became a priority target because your discipline held. This is why temptation escalated right after you decided to stay aligned. This is why distractions multiplied right when your focus sharpened. This is why opportunities that smelled slightly wrong suddenly appeared looking almost right. You were not being tested for failure. You were being verified for promotion. Heaven needed to confirm that your discipline would hold under increased pressure. Hell needed to discover if your consistency could be cracked with better offers. Both kingdoms watched as you navigated temptation after temptation. And you held. Not perfectly, not without struggle, not without moments where the easier path looked incredibly appealing. But you held. Your discipline qualified what your gifts only introduced. Your consistency earned access that your talents only announced. Your restraint protected what your anointing attracted. Chosen one. Guard your discipline above everything else. The enemy will always offer shortcuts that lead to cliffs. There will always be faster routes that end in destruction dressed as destination. There will always be opportunities that promise everything and cost you authority you cannot afford to lose. Your discipline is your true weapon. Protect it with everything you have. Chosen one. Not all attacks come from strangers. Some come through hands you trusted completely. There was betrayal that shocked you not because it happened but because of who delivered it. Wounds that cut deeper than others because they came from someone standing close enough to embrace you. Sabotage that succeeded not because of skill but because of access you freely provided. The enemy used familiarity against you. When direct attacks failed repeatedly, new strategies were deployed. When frontal assaults could not penetrate the protection surrounding your life, infiltration was attempted instead. When distance no longer provided access, proximity was weaponized, and someone you trusted became the entry point. This does not mean you misjudged everyone in your life. This does not mean your discernment failed completely. This does not mean every relationship is dangerous and every connection should be suspected. It means you outgrew certain containers and not everyone accepted the upgrade. Some people wanted you to remain who you used to be. Some connections only worked when you operated at lower capacity. Some relationships required your dysfunction to feel comfortable, and your growth threatened their equilibrium. So sabotage came through familiar hands. Information you shared in confidence became gossip in rooms you were not invited to. Vulnerabilities you revealed in trust became weapons aimed at your weakest points. Strategies you discussed with those you believed in became intelligence delivered to those who wished you harm. But the betrayal exposed something important. Direct routes had been closed. The enemy had to use indirect methods because you had become fortified against obvious attacks. The fact that proximity was the only remaining access point proves how protected you have become from outside assault. Chosen one, release bitterness over what happened. Bitterness anchors you to what you have already surpassed. Unforgiveness ties you to levels you have been promoted beyond. Resentment keeps you revisiting rooms heaven already closed behind you. What betrayed you cannot follow where you are going. Those hands no longer have access. Those voices no longer have influence. Those wounds will become testimonies of survival. Forgive not because they deserve it. Forgive because your destiny requires hands free from chains to the past. Chosen one, hear this clearly and let it settle deep into your spirit. What you carry cannot be stolen. There have been moments when you watched others imitate what heaven deposited inside you. You saw your words coming from other mouths without acknowledgement. You witnessed your vision replicated by those who never gave credit. You observed your unique frequency being copied by those who studied you closely. And it angered you. The frustration of being duplicated without honor burns differently than other wounds. Watching someone receive applause for what you pioneered creates a specific type of pain that few understand. Seeing your originality presented as their innovation stirs emotions that are difficult to process. But heaven wants you to release that frustration today. Imitation may attempt to mimic what you carry. Replication may try to duplicate your frequency. Counterfeit versions may attract temporary attention and momentary applause. But authenticity outranks imitation every single time. What was deposited in you by heaven cannot be manufactured in a laboratory of observation. The frequency you carry cannot be copied through careful study. The authority you walk in cannot be replicated through mimicry, no matter how skilled the imitator becomes. They can copy your words, but not your weight. They can imitate your style, but not your substance. They can duplicate your methods, but not your mantle. Chosen one, comparison exhausts you because comparison was never designed to measure you. The scale others use does not apply to your assignment. The metrics that evaluate their success cannot accurately assess what heaven is building through your life. You are not late. You are not disqualified. You are not overlooked. What is unfolding through you required maturity that could not be rushed. Your consistency qualified you when talent alone would have failed. Your restraint protected you when visibility would have destroyed you. Your integrity endorsed you when popularity would have corrupted you. Heaven stamped what earth questioned. Let them imitate. Let them replicate. Let them study your movements and copy your methods and present your innovations as their own discoveries. What you carry cannot be stolen, because what you carry was never about what you do. It was always about who you are. And who you are cannot be duplicated by anyone walking this earth. Your voice has a frequency that belongs only to you. Your authority flows from a source only you can access. Your assignment fits a shape only your life can fill. Chosen one, a final warning is being released over your life right now. Do not return to familiar cycles for validation. There is a pull you have been feeling lately. A tug toward old rooms that once felt comfortable. A longing for spaces where you were understood without effort. A craving for connections that required no explanation of who you have become. But that pull is a trap. Nostalgia becomes dangerous when elevation is active. Memory edits the past and removes the pain that made leaving necessary. Longing rewrites history and erases the reasons heaven separated you from what you now miss. Old rooms cannot host new authority. If you go back to be understood, you will be misunderstood on purpose. If you return seeking validation, you will be reminded of who you used to be instead of celebrated for who you have become. If you knock on doors heaven closed, you will find rooms that shrink the very authority expansion built inside you. The invitation to return is not reconciliation. It is reassignment to levels you have already surpassed. Some will welcome your return only to remind you of past failures. Some will celebrate your presence only to diminish your progress. Some will offer comfort only to quietly reintroduce chains you already broke free from. Chosen one, you must choose forward, even when explanation is demanded. Not everyone deserves to understand your journey. Not every relationship from your past is entitled to access your present. Not every voice that once spoke into your life retains permission to speak into your future. Movement must continue even when understanding is withheld. There will be moments when loneliness tempts you to retreat. Seasons when isolation makes old connections feel safer than unfamiliar advancement. Days when the unknown path ahead seems more frightening than the known path behind. But you cannot go back. What heaven built in the wilderness will not survive in Egypt. What was developed in solitude will not thrive in old atmospheres. What was forged in fire will not maintain strength in rooms that require you to shrink. This is the final warning. Fatigue does not mean defeat. Weariness often precedes expansion. Rest strategically when needed. But retreat is not an option. Pause if you must. Breathe when necessary. But never go backward. Your destiny lives forward and only forward. Chosen one, what comes next will not require you to prove anything, only to remain positioned. Everything you walked through brought you to this exact moment. Every fire that burned but did not consume you. Every betrayal that wounded but did not destroy you. Every delay that frustrated but did not disqualify you. Every attack that targeted but did not terminate you. All of it was preparation for where you now stand. The divine level you unlocked is not about status. Heaven did not elevate you so others would applaud your name or recognize your face. This promotion was never about platforms or popularity or public validation. It was always about stewardship. Influence without noise. Authority without intimidation. Power without display. This is why your life feels watched lately. This is why opposition became subtle instead of loud. This is why resistance shifted from direct confrontation to quiet interference. Overt methods no longer work on you. The enemy adapted because old strategies failed. Loud attacks stopped producing results. Direct assaults bounced off the protection surrounding your life, so warfare shifted to whispers instead of shouts, to inconvenience instead of catastrophe, to delay instead of destruction. But none of it can stop what has already been authorized. Chosen One, there is a reason you survived what should have broken you. Think about everything you endured, the nights that seemed endless, the pain that felt unbearable, the loneliness that pressed against your chest until breathing became difficult. You should not have made it through. But survival was not the miracle. Preservation was. While others burned out under similar pressure, you were preserved. While others compromised when faced with identical temptation, you were kept. While others sought shortcuts through the same wilderness, you stayed aligned and walked the longer road. That alignment unlocked access others will never receive. You are protected by assignment, not accident. You are guided by purpose, not coincidence. You are covered by covenant, not luck. The elevation ahead is undeniable. No voice can speak against what heaven authorized. No weapon formed against your destiny will succeed. No opposition can reverse what has already been set in motion. The elevation ahead is irreversible. What opened cannot be closed by human hands. What was granted cannot be revoked by earthly authority. What began in the invisible realm will manifest in the visible world. The elevation ahead is already in motion, not future tense, not pending approval, not waiting for conditions to align. Already moving, already working, already producing results you will soon witness with your own eyes. Stay steady, stay aligned, stay discerning. This message reached you because you were ready to hear it, and what follows will prove everything spoken over your life today. Before you leave, Chosen One, hear my heart. The fact that you made it to the end of this message means something profound. Your spirit needed every word spoken here today. Out of millions scrolling past divine confirmations, you stayed, you listened, you received. That is not coincidence. That is destiny recognizing destiny. Do not walk away without subscribing to this channel. It costs you nothing but means everything for the journey God is taking you on. Hit the notification bell so the enemy cannot block the next message assigned to your breakthrough. Type "I am positioned" in the comments and let heaven record your declaration. You have been walking alone for too long, but there is a family here. Chosen ones like you who understand warfare others cannot see. Warriors who fight battles nobody applauds. Survivors who carry scars that tell stories of impossible preservation. You belong here. Subscribe now. Your next breakthrough might be in the very next video released on this channel. Do not let distractions steal what heaven scheduled for your ears. Stay connected, Chosen One. The best is not behind you. The best is still ahead, and you will not walk toward it alone.